Welcome to this video on fair market rental rates dealing with absolute and relative change. So we're going to use these from 2000 to 2015 for a select group of cities in Indiana. And for our purposes here in the next problems, we're going to talk about from 2000 to 2015. So that means 2000 will be considered the old or the reference value, while 2015 will be new. So again, also recall, absolute change is new minus old, while relative change is new minus old divided by old. So we'll have to come back, and I'm not going to flip back and forth, so hopefully you have this in front of you. Take a screenshot or something on your phone so you can see these values, but these are the numbers that we're going to be using for our values. All of 2015 will be new, and again 2000 will be old. So we're going to start first in Fort Wayne. To find the fair market rates in Fort Wayne, we start with the 2015 value, which is 687, and we subtract the 2000 value, which is 508. When we subtract those, we get a number of 179. So that means from 2000 to 2015, there was a $179 increase in fair market rental rates. Now, the relative change, we take new minus old, that's our numerator, and we divide by the old value, which would be 508. So I do that, change it to a percent, and I round it to the nearest percent, and I got 35%, which means from 2000 to 2015 in Fort Wayne, fair market rental rates increased 35%. Now, I'm going to go back to the previous page for you. I'm going to hit pause. I want you to look at these four and try to do these four. And actually, I'm not going to go back to the other page. You can rewind the video if you need to. But Gary, Indianapolis, Bloomington, Terre Haute, go ahead and hit pause, try them, and then come back and look at your answers, compare them to mine. So you can see for each one of these, I tried to use different colors so you could differentiate a little bit. But you can see they're all positive, which means from 2000 to 2015 in all five of these cities, the fair market rental rates went up for everybody. Mostly in Terre Haute, where they increased 57%. Smallest was in Gary, where they only increased 26%. But you can see that's a little bit different, right? Everything is new minus old for the absolute change, and then new minus old divided by the old. So your answer from the absolute change becomes the numerator and the relative change, and you divide by the old value. Now, if you look in the bottom here, write a meaningful sentence. Okay, so we're talking about Indianapolis for our meaningful sentences. Okay, well, the absolute change is 240. So that means there was a 240 increase in fair market rental rate in Indianapolis from 2000 to 2015. That's what it was. The value increase, what are you talking about, who are you talking about, and over what time span? When you're talking about relative change, they increased in Indy by 43% during the 15 years leading up to 2015. Or you could say between 2000 and 2015. Any of those would work. All right, so those kind of things. As long as you're giving information, what's the number that you're using? What's the time frame? What's the city? You know, use specifics, use details to give that information. All right, now we're going to look at just the year 2015. So when you that table that you have. We're only looking at 2015, but we're looking between cities. And when you're talking between cities, if I'm going to somewhere, think about if you're going shopping. If I start at home and then I go from home to the mall. Well, home is old because that's where I'm coming from. So from is considered old. Wherever I'm going to is my new location. So that's considered new. Okay, so when we're talking about Indianapolis to Terre Haute, I'm going to use Terre Haute minus Indianapolis to get a value of negative 114. And then when I go to find the relative change, I would take that negative 114 and I would divide it by the reference value, which is 792, to get a change of negative 14.4%. So if you're talking about in 2015, from Indianapolis to Terre Haute, the fair market rental rates decreased by $114. They decreased 14.4% because we went from Indianapolis to Terre Haute. Now, when you go Bloomington to South Bend, you're going to take 763. This is Bloomington to South Bend minus 823 for a value of negative 60. Then I take that negative 60 and I divide by the reference of 823, and I get negative 7.3%. So if you're moving from Bloomington to South Bend, your fair market rental rates are going to go down $60, or there's a 7.3% change. Let's go from Evansville to Kokomo. So we start with Kokomo, 704. Go subtract Evansville, 721. And if you go from Evansville to Kokomo, the price goes down by $17. It decreases by 2.4%. So you take that negative 17 and divide by 721. So new minus old divided by old. Okay? So that's how we got those. Now, when you're talking about meaningful sentences, from absolute change from Indianapolis to Terre Haute, and I kind of talked about this, the fair market rental rate from Indy, well, let's just say, where's my eraser? There we go. Fair market rental rate is $114 less in Terre Haute than Indy, right? Because it went down when you went from Indy to Terre Haute, so that means Terre Haute is less. If you're talking about relative change, fair market rental rate is 14.4% less in Terre Haute than Indy. Something like that. Okay, again, I probably should have 2015 in here somewhere because that's the year that we're talking about, but you just want to make sure you give your information. Now, we got two more questions here in this video. Number one, write a sentence comparing South Bend to Bloomington using absolute and relative change. I'm going to stick with 2015, even though it doesn't really say. And if I'm going South Bend to Bloomington, that means South Bend is old, Bloomington is new. So I take Bloomington, 823, minus South Bend, 763, and I get a positive 60. And then to find my relative, I would take 60 divided by 763, and I get a 7.9%. So fair market rental rates are $60 higher in Bloomington compared to South Bend, or Bloomington is 7.9% higher than South Bend, right? Bloomington is bigger. Now let's compare Kokomo to Evansville. Kokomo to Evansville. So old and new, and it says relative change. So we're going to take Evansville, 721, minus Kokomo, 704, divided by 704. And I get 2.4%. That means Evansville is 2.4% higher than Kokomo. That's what that means. And that's using absolute and relative change to talk about things within same years and going from place to place.